Hello, my name is Billy Nash, and today I'll be doing a Microsoft Excel tutorial video on correlations and how to use the correl function. Correlation is a statistical analysis tool that looks at two values or two numbers or variables and tries to see if they are related. And there's three different types of relations that these variables can have between each other when talking about correlation. They can have no relation, which would, after doing the calculation, would give you a value of 0 or a value near 0. That would mean that there's no correlation between two values, meaning that if one went up, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other will go up or down. It might go up, or it might go up or down. There's no relationship between if one goes up that the other will do something predictable related to that first variable going up or down. A positive correlation relationship would be that if the first variable or first value goes up, the second one it's comparing it to goes up, meaning they have a positive relationship or a positive correlation. And then a negative correlation is the opposite. If one variable goes up and the other goes down, then that would be a negative relationship. So here in our example, we have a table of different amounts of hours studied for a test and three different tests. And so we're going to use the correlation function to see if the amount of time the students spent studying really did have an effect on what their scores on the test, or if what their grades were on the test. If the more hours, so we're looking to see if there was a positive correlation between hours of studied and test scores. Or not necessarily a positive correlation, but looking to see if there is a correlation, whether it be positive or negative, for hours studied and a test score. So to begin our correlation function, we'll begin it like any other function. We'll push equals and start to type correlation. And in Excel, it is just Corel. So we can select that function. And the first array will be the first set of values that you want to compare. And for our example, our first one, and the one that we'll be using to compare to all three different tests, the first array will always be our hours studied. So we're going to highlight that column down and click comma. And then our second array, and that is going to be, our second array will be the range of cells, the range of cells, yes, and values in those cells that you want to compare to the first array that you selected to see if there is a positive or a negative correlation. If, as the numbers in this cell go up or down, do these numbers in the second cell follow any pattern up or down, or follow any relationship to this first cell or our studied. So we're going to highlight our second cell and click enter. You can see we got a negative 0.01. So that's pretty much as close as to 0 as we can get without rounding. So that is saying that for test 1, the amount of studying had no effect on your test scores. You could study 2 hours and get a 90, or you could study 9 hours and get a worse score. So for test number 1, there was no correlation between the amount of time studied and your test scores. So that is how the correlation function works. And now let's try it again for our second and third tests. So we'll do equals, correl, select our hours studied again, because that's the values we want to compare our different test results to. And this one is very close to one, so it has a very strong relationship. So for test 2, if you studied 2 hours, you would fail the test. But if you studied 9, you'd get almost 100%. And for every hour more you studied, the higher your score was going to be, is what this is saying here. This strong positive correlation, that for every hour you studied more, the better your grade was going to be. And so now let's run it here on our third one. And we'll select our hours studied again. and our test 3. And we have a negative 0.94, a very negative correlation. And for the purpose of the example, I did do it so we would get one of each type of correlation relationship. And for this one, you can see it is a very negative one, as the more you study, the lower your test scores would be. I don't know if that's ever true in the real world, but in this example, it is true. And that is one thing to think about when you are running these correlation functions is the question that you're asking real. Like, what if I said, is the type of pencil, and we had like different pencil types in here with a number value assigned to them, does the type of pencil type you have affect your test? And I'm sure that it would give you all sorts of weird correlations, or pretty much a zero correlation of none, because that's not really a real world example or a question you would really have in the real world. If is your pencil type going to affect your test score? You would think it wouldn't. But that's something to watch out with the correlation functions, just making sure you have reasonable or kind of realistic questions you're trying to answer, or two reasonable variables you're comparing, I guess would be the way to put it. Two like variables that you're comparing, or that would have a relationship in the real world. So that is how the correlation function works, and how you can use it to see if you have a positive, negative, or no correlation between two variables. Thanks.